Good morning and welcome to Tanks Invest. Talk about investing, finance, versus women. For today's video tips only, the investment on top of today will be Ethereum ticker ETH. And this is my second video that I'm hosting again today. With respect to Ethereum, some recordings of 2:44 p.m. on the Eastern Time, currently trading $3,183, up about 7.90% so far. With respect to the overall crypto market, is surging today with respect to anticipated momentum pressure that we are incurring stem from the Coinbase earnings tomorrow, right? With Coinbase currently up about 8% so far. Also with the combination of a lot of positive news that have been percolating for like basically the last 6 to 7 hours so far. Right, I've been keeping tabs on the media front. I was having lunch while reading news at the same time. A couple of news that came out, right? So starting from the first one that I see on coming from CoinDesk, of a synopsis of the article, right, is depicting on the bank Standard Chartered, which is a bank based off Asian Pacific region or APAC region, if you may, that with respect to their offering called Sodia, is to offer crypto brokerage to institutional investors in Ireland. So obviously, with the additional value creations offering that they want to propose to their corporate clients going forward, obviously put a lot of gravitas into crypto assets as a long-term value proposition going forward. Knowing that a lot of these investment banks, including like Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, are slowly offering in their investors brokerage offering going forward, right? So in addition to that one news, we also see other comparable news talking about with respect to Bitcoin, right, surging above 45,660, which is a level of resistance, right? That with that drag effects that's forming right now is pulling across the whole crypto market to go up. So obviously with that correlation effects that we're still having, that's propelling Ethereum, Dogecoin, and Cardano and other crypto assets. Is obviously something that's worth mentioning, right? In addition to other news, this is more of a pseudo negative news slash positive news, but it's more like a foreshadow sentiment type of news. Is with respect to the $1 trillion infrastructure bill, right? It's with respect to the status of the outcome of this bill, it's still up to it's still pending, right? We don't really have a confirmatory status as to like how what's the implications with respect to potential taxation, with respect to commission fee structure that can be in play for crypto asset exchange going forward, right? So that's something we have to be mindful of, knowing the fact that the feds and the SEC are trying to enforce some regulatory compliance structure around it. And whenever we hear anything along the line of restricting or regulatory compliance structure, it can potentially hinder the profitability margin that you want to produce by investing into these crypto assets, right? So that's something to be mindful of. And then some other news that's coming out with respect to regurgitation news regarding the London fork that happened, right? Last week, right? And how many Ethereum has been burned so far, right? And the depictions on this article that came out from CoinDesk is basically talking about 36% of new coins issuance has been burned in the last 2 days so far. In addition to that, some other news are basically regurgitating on the Coinbase earnings call that's coming out tomorrow. What's the potential implications to the overall crypto market? With the potential headwind of the the crypto regulatory constraints that we might potentially hear from the bills that we've been hearing from Gary Gensler, from the Feds, obviously with the new bill from Don Byers, and the infrastructure bills of $1 trillion, revision that being cultivated to tweak the language around the crypto assets implications going forward, right? So obviously with all of these news being encapsulated, it's driving some positive pressure across the board, and we are above the $3,150 level. So I'm gonna go through technical analysis again to see how we're trending right now. Are we gonna see more of a buying pressure ahead of us, or are we gonna see more of a selling pressure ahead of us, knowing the fact that tomorrow's earnings call can be one of the market drivers on dragging or pulling the overall crypto assets to go up or go down. So stay tuned, stick around, let's make some money. Moving on to the technical analysis for Ethereum ticker ETH, I'm recording this of 2:57 p.m. on an Eastern time, currently $3,167, up about 7.36% so far. You can see that with respect to the whole overall crypto market, we're up today ahead of the Coinbase earnings tomorrow, and some other positive media affectation has been percolating as well, obviously. So with respect to Bitcoin, you can see that we're up about 6.22% right now, in comparisons to Ethereum. I would say Ethereum is a little bit more overbought and a little bit more dragged up in comparisons to Bitcoin. And if you compare that with Dogecoin, I would say, Ethereum is even higher overbought in comparisons to Dogecoin if you compare that on a MACD and RSI perspective. And then Cardano, it would be under the overbought level despite the surge that we've been experiencing so far. So in terms of like which one is the most overbought at the moment, I would say I'll rank number 1 Ethereum, number 2 Bitcoin, number 3 Dogecoin, and then Cardano will be number 4. Okay. There's no reason why I'm doing like the ranking, but that's just because these are the ones that are listed here. So that's just like a good frame of reference for your just like FYI, if you may, right? So with respect to Ethereum, knowing the fact that we are above the 3,150 right now, so let's take a look at what's the next level of resistance that we'll potentially test to, right? So knowing the fact that we did break the 3,150, which is the level that we have, if you look at the small candle here, right? The next level of resistance that will have some, friction will be around the 3,250, or to be more exact, the $3,241.80 per the technical analysis that we see here, right? So, but again, you could see that the level is not like the most substantive one, where it basically formed like 1, 2, 3, 4 type of consolidation level that was relatively brief, right? So we're not really consolidating. It was just more of a brief consolidation that people bought in. So I think ideally, if we keep surging, contingent on obviously the earnings call comes out to be positive, based on how the management team is going to depict, and some of the media affectation that's going to be continued percolating, on top of the fact that we are at the euphoric stage of the price cycle, for this asset class right now, that the risk is definitely incurring, and the potential gains if you're buying at the current level right now would be, at the minimum would be $100, right, to reach about 3,225, and as we break through that level, the next level is going to leap up to 3,385 per the discussions we had prior, right? So knowing the fact that we know that the risk is incurring, we are at the thrill versus the euphoric level. We are there basically the early stage of euphoria that we should be selling off anytime soon, right? As we have that surge, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually leap up to the 3,385 and then sell down from there. Because again, the launching plat is like at the lower level with the 1750, right? In comparisons to the previous launching pad that was at the 2,150, right? On top of the fact that the MACD confirms that we overbought, RSI is highly overbought at the moment, that at the risk level that we are incurring now would be relatively higher in comparisons to the past, right? So if you want to incur risk right now, that's up to your risk appetite. But just know that that's something we have to be mindful of, right? If you are buying now, just be prepared that we might sell off sharply. But if you hold long term, you'll be fine, because that's it's a long term gain rather than a short term swing trade type of gains, right? Just to recap on some technical analysis, with respect to the frames of reference that we know, right? Knowing the fact that we are above the 3,150, but we know that we are overbought and we are at the thrill and the euphoric zone right now, that the risk is relatively high, right? And we know that the next leap up is technically at 2,250, the 3,250, apologies. And then the next level will be the 3,385 per the technical analysis. That, the probability of you gaining that, knowing the fact that we are overbought right now, it's not going to be as promising in comparisons to the sell-off that we're going to be experiencing, right? So ideally, for me, again, that's just my personal risk aversion, right? I will wait until we cool down a little bit, right, to the 2,750, 2,450, 2,150, given the fact that the euphoria should be expected or is already happening right now, that the sell-off should be incurring momentarily. So we need to be patient about how we want to risk incur. ultimately investing is a form of risk mitigation, a form of risk management. So if you want to buy now, again, that's up to your risk aversion, your appetite. Because if you believe in this a long term, you should be buying at this level right now. Because if you think about 12 months price target, 9,800, we're still at a relatively discount, right? So hopefully this is helpful in terms of how you risk mitigate. But for me, my cost average is relatively low, and I do have a large position. So I would just rather be practicing patient, have my cash on the side on reserve, and wait for a better opportune time to buy in. So that's just my personal preference, you know. So further, respect my technical analysis on Ethereum again. I know with respect to the volatility that we're seeing right now, it seems like we are struggling to sustain. But the technicals never lies, right? It always tells how people are psychologically treating it. It seems like the whales are just basically waiting on the right moment to potentially liquidate or take profits, right? So it ultimately depends on your risk aversion, your risk appetite. Ultimately, no one can tell you what to do, but I'm just telling you what I'm doing, and I'm not always correct. It's important that you don't ever just take anybody say what they say by face value. You have to be calculated. You have to filter through what are the right things that should be applicable to what you're trying to do, how you execute going forward, right? So hopefully this is helpful. This is my play going forward. And yeah, again, if you have any questions specifically, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available. I'm always trying to be helpful. And stay tuned for things coming up. Take care. Bye.